So recently I received a comment from a reviewer. They said, gosh, these red light therapy companies are ripping us off. Panels are so cheap, they're making an absolute killing. They then went on to say, there's a golden opportunity here for an entrepreneur type to set up a red light therapy company selling low cost panels. They'll do so well. Now I understand where they're coming from, but there's a lot to unpack here. And after dedicating the last 4 or 5 years to red light therapy and reviews and products and all of that, I've picked up a few insights and I understand how some of these companies work. So what I'm going to do is actually crunch the numbers and see if we are getting ripped off. And later in the video, I'm actually going to share some tips for those of you who are looking at setting up a red light therapy company. I've got some valuable insights that I think you'll appreciate. Okay, so before I get started, I do need to say that the numbers I'm going to use here, this is all for a bit of fun. It's not realistic. If you want to set up a company, you're going to have to do a bit more research than just taking the numbers I use in this video to the bank, so to speak. But still, it should give us a pretty good indication of what's going on. Also, I need to mention I am affiliated with a lot of red light therapy companies. So if you purchase one, you use a link, I get a commission, you get a discount. It's a win-win. Okay, so when it comes to selling red light therapy panels, the first big cost for a company is buying the panel. You see, they don't make them. Most panels, or pretty much all panels, are made in China. I think some are made in Malaysia, but most of them are made, or at least assembled, in China, because I know the LEDs often come from Taiwan, so they're buying them in. But yeah, pretty much a big name Western red light therapy company is reaching out to a factory in China, and they're building these panels, shipping them to their warehouse in America or wherever it may be, and then marketing them, packaging them up, and selling them to the end user. So the first big cost is, of course, buying the panel itself. Now, for those of you who are in my Facebook group, there's quite a few people talking about buying direct from China themselves, which is possible. I've done a video on this, check that out. And roughly you can get panels for, say, 30 to 50% of a typical retail price. So if a panel is retailing from a Western company for, say, $1,000, you might be able to get it for about $400 or $500. However, that price doesn't include shipping, which can add quite a bit to the price. Likewise with import duties. And there's a whole lot of other downside issues as well when buying from China directly. Again, all of that's covered in the other video. Now, what I did is reached out to one of the bigger red light therapy factories in China, and I said, hey, can you give me a price for a 300 LED panel with 5 wavelengths, your red and your near infrared? I asked if they did a touchscreen. They said no, they just do the regular control panel. They don't do pulsing or anything. So it's a very basic red light therapy panel. I think Fergus basic line, Cyto LED, Gimbared maybe, Color Elite. These are panels that are retailing for maybe $900 to $1,200 or more. If you use the discount code, you may save 5 or 10% on those prices. But typically these panels they're more your basic budget panels. I mean, they're scoring in the bottom third in my 2024 comparison series, right? Okay, so now we have that base unit price, $380 for one panel. Now we're going to get it shipped to our warehouse. Let's say our warehouse is in the US. It was a little bit tricky getting the price here. I know to get one sample shipped to my door, it was going to be $150. If you want to get a large order shipped urgently via air freight, it's going to be very, very expensive. You can go by boat, in which case it's a 30, 40 day transit time. So I've just gone with a $50 per panel price here. So that brings our cost price up to $430. Remember, this is a minimum order of 20. Now we're going to pay duties or import taxes or local taxes when that hits the country. This varies from country to country. Here in New Zealand, it's 15% plus a bunch of other fees. So I'm just going to add, say, 10% to the price. So now we're up to a cost of about $470 US landed, which is still well below the $8,000-$9,000 price point, right? But there's still a lot more cost to factor in. First up, we have wages. Okay, so someone's got to handle this product at the warehouse. Someone's got to work customer support. Someone's got to place the order, the admin tasks associated with dealing with China and making the payment. Time goes into this, right? Now, I literally have no idea how much time would go in per order. I'm sure an established company would have all these numbers, and I don't even know what the typical wage rates are. So I just assumed it's going to be $20 worth of wages per panel sold. Now, of course, the bigger the company, the more volume you're doing, the more efficient it's going to be, the lower the cost per panel. But, for a small starting out company, let's just say 20 bucks. So we're now at $490. Another price point is branding. So the quote I got from China was just for a bare bones standard panel. If you want to add your own manual and do some stickers and labels, there's a cost associated with that. I'm going to say just $5 here. So now we're at 495. Next up, there's the R&D. So I mentioned that sample price before. Chances are, if you're going to place an order of 20 or 50 or 100 panels, you're probably going to get one to test and play with and make sure it works and, just check the whole process out, right? You may actually get a couple more. Then there's going to be costs associated with creating the manual, testing the manual, taking photos for your website. All of those costs have to be factored in. Of course, they're typically a fixed cost, but you then need to spread it across each sale. So let's say that's $10. So we're now at $505. Now we have company overheads. You're paying electricity, you're paying insurance, you're paying for your accountant to do your books, just running costs. Again, I have no idea what the numbers are here, but let's just say $10 per panel. It comes up to $515. All right, now we have the warehouse costs. Again, this might be leasing a warehouse. It may be paying a warehouse company, someone who specializes in storing the products and shipping them out. Well, typically though, they may charge a set monthly rate and then you pay per product. But again, you may be doing it yourself out of a spare garage. I have no idea. But I'm just going to say $5 here. So that brings it up to $520. Now, there may be people watching this who run red light therapy companies and they're just saying, oh my God, Alex, your numbers are so far off. And if you are, I'd love to know the numbers. I mean, give me the breakdown. All of us would love it. But yeah, just appreciate that I'm just trying to guess here. Anyway, now we're at a $520 cost. Hey, if you're enjoying this video and this analysis, can you just go down, hit the like button, and also subscribe while you're down there as well. I do a lot of videos. This one's a little bit different, but typically I do a lot of reviews and comparisons and science reviews. So if you want to see more videos like that on red light therapy, subscribe. Let's say we're going to be selling these as more of it is a basic panel. So we're going to be going for the lower cost market here. All right. So we're not going bells and whistles like Platinum LED with touchscreens and apps and, all that crazy stuff. We're going, mass market, lower price point. Let's say we're going to sell it for $900. So that leaves, it's still leaving $380 profit margin, right? But there's still a few more costs. Of course, we've now got to sell this panel. Like, how are we going to do that? We need to market it. We need to advertise it. Now, I have spoken to a few people over the years, and I know this is a big cost component of the selling price. I've heard numbers of anything from 10 to 20% of the selling price. So if a panel's selling for $1,000, it's costing the company $100 up to $200 just to market it to sell, which is, I was quite surprised by that. And the reason why is it's a very competitive space now. There are a lot of red light therapy companies out there. The barriers to entry are quite low. So once you get in, you're in a busy field. You're going to stand out. So yeah, let's just go with 10%. And if we're selling it for $900, that's going to be $90. So that brings the price up to $610. Then of course we have the payment fee, like Stripe may charge a few percent, or your credit card processing. Typically that's 2%. So we're up to $630. Okay, so now you got to ship it to the customer. It's at your warehouse and you got to ship it off. Now, I really don't know what the price is here, and it may take me a long time to find out the prices. The crazy thing is a lot of these companies are doing free American shipping, but also free international shipping, like Royo Therapy, Block Blue Light, or Block Blue Light have like $9 shipping, but a lot of companies do really low cost or free shipping. I don't know how they do this, okay? Well, I know that how they do it. They're paying a company to do it. But I'll give you a quick story. So recently I had a panel that I was sending to my sister. I live in New Zealand. She lives in Perth, the west coast of Australia. I went to 4 different freight places in New Zealand. One of them I have a company account with. The cheapest shipping I could get was $350. It was half the value of the panel. It was crazy. So that's just going from New Zealand to Australia. It was air freight, but still, it's a lot of money. Another example is I recently reviewed a panel that didn't ship internationally. So I purchased it and then I sent it to a freight forwarding company. So they send it to US depot, all good. And then I pay the freight forwarder to send it to me. The cost for that, $260. Remember, I live in New Zealand, like miles away from anyone and anything. Still though, $260, it's crazy. But then when you think about it, red light therapy products, panels are heavy, they're large. Fortunately, they're shaped great for shipping, but they are heavy and bulky. Now, I know companies will have contracts with freight companies and they'll be doing a certain amount of volume of sales and they'll get discounted rates. But still, surely they're paying quite a bit, right? So let's take a figure of $100 per panel. These are the 300 LED larger panels, right? So $100 per panel. We're now up to $730. Remember, this is how much it's costing us as a company selling red light therapy panels to an end consumer. All right, now finally we have the returns and warranty. Now, hopefully you've got the sample, everything's good, you've tested everything, and you're not going to have any issues. But chances are there will be issues. The customer will want to return a product, something will get damaged, or maybe you get unlucky and you have a really bad batch and everything needs to come back. So you need to factor this in as well, because it will happen. So I've said $20 per order. It may be a little bit high, but as you're starting out, and if you're a bit smaller, there's probably going to be more of these than a more of established company with good checks and balances in place. Okay, so if we sell it for $900, remember it is a base panel, and we're selling it for $750, that leaves us with a healthy $150 profit margin, which is pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't say it's rip-off sort of margins, but it's pretty good. But then of course, we're gonna pay taxes. So of course, when you sell it for $900, that will be inclusive of goods and services taxes. GST here in New Zealand is 15%. VAT, value added tax, these taxes vary from country to country, even state to state. So that of course is going to come out of the selling price. So maybe that $150 margin goes down to a $100 margin. So a $100 net profit margin on a sale, it's nearly like 10% net profit margin, which is pretty good, I guess. That's pretty good. But then of course you got company taxes. So here in New Zealand, company taxes around 30%. Australia is 25%. It varies from country to country, but yeah, let's just say it's 25%. So you had a $100 profit margin, you pay the government your 25%, you're left with 75% in the hand. Now, let's go back to the commentator who's saying, oh my God, these companies are ripping us off. The panel cost is proportionately low. I mean, maybe a third to a half of the total cost, but you look at all those other costs associated with it. They're not buying a panel for $400 and selling it for $1,000 and keeping $600. Not at all. There's a lot of costs involved. There's a lot of work involved. There's a lot of risks, responsibility, time to sell that product, to sell the panel. I just think it's important to keep that in mind. Now, am I saying all of these extra costs, all these middlemen costs are worth it? Well, that's what my other video talks about, whether it's worth paying a premium for that convenience. And I think it is for a few reasons, but again, I'll talk about that in the other video. But as you can see, it's not daylight robbery. These guys aren't making an absolute killing. And I think another good point here is the fact that there are so many red light therapy companies in the space. If there was only one or two and they were making like $800-900 profit on every single panel, pretty soon word would get out, or people would see an opportunity and they would get into the market themselves. And this is exactly what has happened. I mean, you go back 4 or 5 years when I did my first comparison series, there were like 5 red light therapy companies selling panels. 2019, I think I had 12 in my comparison series. 2024, I had 17 different red light therapy companies. And there's more out there, right? I probably could have got up to 25, but at some point I just had to say enough of it is enough. We're doing this. So yeah, I mean, it's just basic economics, supply and demand. Barriers to entry in this space are very, very low. So I don't know. I think it is quite fair in terms of profit margins and all of that. If it could be done cheaper, then a company would come in and do it cheaper, and that would bring the price down. I mean, we see it with Juve. Juve is ridiculously expensive. They used to be the market leader, reasonably well priced, but over time their prices have gone up. These other companies have come in with better panels, bigger panels, more power, more features, and they're much lower price point. Now that gap between Juve and the rest is huge, and Juve have lost the dominance as the go-to market leader. So it's just natural economics, supply demand, capitalism. Okay, now at the start of the video, I said hang around, because if you are gonna set up a red light therapy company, I've got some tips and tricks. So here goes. First up, watch all my reviews, like all of them, every single one of them, and take notes. This isn't just me trying to promote my channel. I've spent a lot of time doing this, and I provide a lot of feedback. I look at all sorts of panels. I mean, I have 17 behind me. I compared all of them recently. You can check out that video later if you want, talking about pros and cons. I live and breathe this stuff, and I put that information out for free. So view it as like a free consultation, right? Like, you can get a lot of information from my reviews. In fact, I know there are 1 or 2 companies out there that did this. Block Blue Light is one example. They watched all my comparison videos and took notes and then tried to come up with a panel that, would have scored well in those videos, in my reviews. And yeah, their debut entry in my 2024 series, they came out 2nd place, only just behind the winner out of 17 panels. So yeah, something to take on board. Likewise, go into the Red Light Therapy Facebook groups, read the comments, see what people value, see what people hate, read past experiences, order reviews, read all that stuff and just, take notes and just compile all of that and sit down and think, okay, we need to make sure it has this, but it can't have that. It's quite easy to do. It may take a week, but it will be well worth your time. Next, be better in some way. Okay, so you may be more unique and innovative compared to the competition. So a good example here is Royo Therapy. They've introduced their panel, their refined series with the smart modes. Hasn't been seen before. It's going to attract a lot of attention and a lot of sales. Get Platinum LED with their Biomax range. Every time they update their panel, it's got a new innovative feature. And everyone's like, wow. And then a year or 2 later, all the other companies start rolling out that feature. They're always doing it, whether it was like the wireless modular support, their really easy to use app, the multiple wavelengths they have, their amazing stands. They're always pushing it on the innovative side. But I should mention being better from an innovative point of view is actually difficult and often quite costly. So if you are starting out, you may not be able to compete on this field. I mean, if you want some really cool app, there's 50 grand just to get that set up. If you want a custom wavelength and you reach out to China and they say, no, we don't do that, but we can, but it's going to be super expensive. Again, you're going to have to pay the money. So it may actually be easier to be better on price. And that is come in with a really good basic product at a low price point. This is the Huga model and they've done really well over the years. And now they're branching into more premium lines with their Huga Ultra range. The problem with competing on price is you're competing against companies that are doing massive orders and are getting some huge volume discounts. So you may actually find that to be competitive, you may actually have to sell at a loss, especially if you're only ordering, say, 20 panels. If you're ordering 2,000 panels, you're going to get a much better price point. But still, you got to play the long game. Another thing is don't cut corners. Don't get the cheap packaging. Don't get the cheap products. Do quality control. Fly to China. Look at some of the products. Test them, see how they make them. If you can't do that, find a company in China who does that on your behalf, or just get a heap of samples. You need to make sure you're getting a good product. Otherwise, you'll buy some product, you'll sell it, it'll be junk, you're gonna have a massive headache. One bad shipment, for instance, like if you don't get a sample and you order, 100 panels and you sell them all, and then you start getting customer complaints saying, hey, this doesn't work, or actually, I'm not getting red light from it. I tested it using my spectrometer, and you'll think, oh gosh, you've got a massive issue on your hands. Next, test your product. Test the panel. Make sure you know what wavelengths are being emitted. Make sure you know the power. Ideally, send it off to a lab and get them to do it, or you could at least get a spectrometer and do your own testing. Share the data, okay? It's very important you do this. A lot of companies don't. And yeah, personally, I think it's a bad approach. And then finally, my last point is know that it's going to be a lot of work. It may look and sound great on paper and you think, hey, I can whip up a website and drop ship these panels and away I go. As someone who has been in the e-commerce space before, not in red light therapy products, but another product, yeah, there's a lot involved. And personally, I absolutely hated it. It's not for everyone. And dealing with customers and dealing with faulty products or delayed shipment orders and all of that, it's not as romantic as, just coming up with really cool Instagram adverts. There's a lot of work that goes involved. And like I said, it is a competitive market. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting. And speaking of interesting, YouTube thinks that this video right here is also going to be interesting. I highly recommend you click it and check it out.